this thing working? Give me some sound over here.
Yeah.
The Out of Bounds Show is powered by the award-winning golf courses at Dancing Rabbit Golf Club in Philadelphia, Mississippi.
SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by the Purple Mattress from any of the Miskelly Sleep Store locations. And the Purple Mattress has the Purple Gel Flex Grid. 7 Miskelly Sleep Stores. It's American-made, mattress that reduces pressure, instantly adapts to your body, and as you get older, this is the key. It doesn't trap heat. And I have been sleeping on a Purple mattress from Miskelly Sleep Store for almost 2 years now, and I love it. We are the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We love having on Tom Luginbill, National College Football Analyst with ESPN. Yesterday, we took a deep dive into the fact that we have 10 new offensive coordinators in the league. Crazy, huh? Mississippi State, Bama, Georgia, A&M, Arkansas, the list goes on and on. And we talked to Kevin Barbay, OC at Mississippi State, and he said, look, I'm not going to do a lot different. Will Rogers played a ton of football, and we're going to tailor this thing around what Will does and what Will does well, and we're going to run it a little bit more. There's some others that will be inheriting new starters and so on, and we're interested to see what could play out. Tom Luginbill played Power 5 football, started at quarterback at Georgia Tech. Tom, talk about what's it like as a QB when you have a new OC or you're trying to understand a new offense and how long it takes and so on. What is that process like?
Well, the biggest thing is learning terminology. Football is football. The scheme, the X's and O's, it's a copycat game. If you watch everybody's kind of doing some of the same things and maybe a different wrinkle here or a different wrinkle there. So I think really what you're trying to do is you're trying to learn terminology. And as a quarterback, the thing that you've really got to be dialed in on are pass protections in terms of knowing how to protect yourself. If they're going to overload you and bring one more than you have to block, where is that player coming from? And am I protecting myself to know that I've got to account for that free rusher? So much of it, I think, starts up front. I mean, I always hear, everybody talking about, okay, well, you got to find out where the safeties are. Okay, well, yeah, you do have to find out where the safeties are. But if you don't understand protections, then it ain't going to matter where the safeties are because you're going to be in trouble if you can't account for free rusher or, where you're hot or where your sight adjusts and all of those sorts of things are. So I think it's about terminology and protections to begin with, and then kind of getting the feel for the personality of the coach. How does your personality match with the coach? What are his teaching ways?
Yeah.
Is he a visual guy? Is he an audio guy? Are you a visual guy? Or are you somebody that just can hear it once or hear it twice and you're good? And so it really is a bit of a feeling out process for, kind of finding the right mix of how to understand each other and what's trying to be developed and taught. And then you've got to be able, at the quarterback position, you've got to be able to process. I mean, that's you've heard me say it before, quarterback play is about decision-making and accuracy. And in the decision-making portion of it, it's how much information can you process at a very efficient, high rate. And that comes from studying. I mean, it really does.
Yeah, not everybody's Gardner Minshew that can transfer in August and at Washington State and run with the offense and go 11-2 at a place that should go 4-8 and do that thing. What we didn't know, even though he's from right here, is that, 30-plus ACT guy, 4.0 student, even though, he's quirky and fun and weird, he's off the charts bright. And people told us that he's just got a photographic memory. Once Leach or whoever it was told him what to do, boom, he got it, took a snapshot, and he was good to go. Well, not everybody can do that. Right, Luke?
Right. And I'll tell you, that's one of the things that makes recruiting high school quarterbacks so difficult, because it's one of the most difficult things to examine and find out. Until you actually have the guy, you may love the things he's capable of doing physically, but can he actually, at the end of the day, can he think? Can he process? Can he make good decisions? How much can he handle? How much can you put on his plate? Do you have to spoon feed him? And a lot of times you don't know. You can try and dive in. You can try and find out a lot of that stuff. But football now, too, especially at the high school level with the quarterback position, so much of it is you're in the shotgun, you lift your leg, you false snap, you stop, you look at the sideline, and the coach tells you where to go with the ball, right? And so it's kind of diminished what we've asked the quarterback to do to some degree, which probably hasn't enabled them to develop the way that they should in terms of truly understanding, the theory of the game, or where things start, understanding leverage points and gap responsibility, all of these different things that are at the core of understanding and learning the game. It's really, really important, but we don't necessarily always teach those things. And I'll tell you the other thing too, is every single week for 18 years in the offseason, I'm generally someplace at a camp or a combine, whether it's Elite 11, whether it's Adidas, whether it's Under Armour, Nike, what have you. And I come across quarterbacks that we've seen so often on film. You really, really like them. You get them in person. And how about this, Bill? And I'm not kidding when I say this, and this is still true to this day. I could take 4 or 5 quarterbacks that I could see at a camp, and they've got 15-plus Power 5 offers. And if I asked them to take a 5-step drop from under center and throw a 10 to 12-yard speed cut out to the right or left, not a single one of them could do it. They're born and bred in the shotgun.
Yeah.
Everything now is shotgun based.
Which is good and bad, right? I mean,
it's good and bad, right? It's good and bad, but the footwork and balance and coming to balance and platform and all these different things. You're asking a guy who's heavily recruited and he can't take a 5-step drop. I mean, that's insane to me. But that's how the game's developed.
We're visiting with Tom Luginbill, national college football analyst with ESPN. He's head deep in the XFL season, but also kind enough to give us some time throughout the spring. Who's in a better spot to be successful on offense this year, Alabama or Georgia, considering they have 2 new offensive coordinators and they'll have a new starter at quarterback? Or are you about to tell me, Bo, they're loaded, they'll have so many weapons and so on around them, and their defense will give them the ball the overwhelming majority of the time in advantageous situations, that while it matters, it almost doesn't matter?
Thank you, buddy. You just gave me my answer. Good job. In all honesty, though, it's funny you say that, because that is my answer. But the other part of my answer is this is the season of the scapegoat offensive coordinator, right? Like Tommy Rees, Liam Cohen, all right, Mike Bobo, all of these guys coming into play where they're having to replace a quarterback that's played a lot of football, right? Joey Hazel at Tennessee is not the offensive coordinator. Josh Heupel,
right?
Yeah, so
it's kind of like Lane.
Part of it, but
yeah.
It's going to be very interesting to see how Bobby Petrino does, because I think Bobby Petrino is one of the brightest football coaches of the last 30 to 40 years of college football. You may not like him, but the results speak for themselves, and he may have himself a guy in I think, what was it, Wiggins, the kid that they played with that was a freshman last year that showed some flashes. So he might have a shot, because they're going to have good players around the quarterback too. But if things don't go well early, like at Kentucky, at Georgia, at Alabama on offense, and when I say don't go well, I'm not saying they lay an egg and they can't cross the 50-yard line and they can't convert a third down. I'm just saying that there's some potholes in the road, okay? It's going to be interesting to see the scrutiny that comes down on those guys at places where the fan bases know you're loaded with talent,
right? But
maybe the quarterback's not up to par yet.
Right. I think yeah. Okay, so Tommy Rees, tell me about him. Here's a guy, 30 years old, played at Notre Dame, decided not to go with Brian Kelly to LSU. Maybe he thought after not doing that he had made a mistake. Saban's able to recruit him in. He knows that he will have to listen to Saban, but I don't know what the ratio is. 70 or so, 80% of it will be what Tommy wants to do, but Saban gets the last call type thing. Saban's not an offensive coach, but he's more of a micromanager. Tell me about Tommy Rees. You really like him, or you think I need to see more? Where are you with Alabama's new offensive coordinator?
Well, he's young and he's had some success. He's been really good with the tight end. He's been really good with shifts and motions and things of that nature that they like to do at Notre Dame offensively under his leadership. But really what I think this is more about is you have a young coach that isn't so far into his career that he's so set in his ways that he's not going to be willing to morph, right? Because you got to understand, when you take the job at Alabama as the offense coordinator, it's not your offense. It's Alabama's offense. So Tommy Rees is going to be coming in there, and that's not to say that he won't have his own stamp and his own wrinkle here and there, but he's going to be adapting to Alabama's personnel. He's going to be adapting to Alabama's terminology. It's not the other way around. Coach Saban doesn't want a guy coming in there and retooling the offense and changing it and breaking it down. Once Sark and Lane had kind of laid the foundation for what they were going to be, and Alabama made a decision that they were going to become more athletic at quarterback, and then they kind of built this fixture on offense of kind of, for lack of a better phrase, an overused term, identity, all right? I don't think Nick Saban wants to go away from that. And I think it's why that if you're a really successful offensive coordinator, right, and you're going to and you're set in your ways, you have your offense, you have your scheme, then that's probably not a place that you'd fit very well in, because that's not what Nick Saban wants. So I think he's catching Tommy Rees at the right time, because he can develop him. He's had enough success on a big stage to where he knows what the pressure points are. He knows there's going to be a lot of scrutiny. He can handle that. And now he's going to have much better players to work with than he had at Notre Dame. Much better players. And by the way, on another note, what is Notre Dame doing? That just got me thinking. Are you? Do you want to compete in big time college football, or you just want to be 9-3 and go to the Citrus Bowl? What are we doing? I mean, you got to be kidding. $2.8 million buyout? I mean, come on. That is ridiculous. So, listen, Tommy Rees might have gotten to Alabama at the perfect time if that's how Notre Dame is going to play it. If I was Marcus Freeman, I would tell my agent, any big-time job that comes open this next offseason, throw my name in.
Well, that's a good point. Okay, we'll touch on that at some point. I want to go to Will Rogers and Kevin Barbay. Will has played an insane amount of football.
Yeah.
A lot of the times he's at a disadvantage talent-wise. He's proven, good grief, this is a lot, 4 or 5 times on Saturdays going against much better recruiters that he can throw it around and win. Everybody knows what he is athletically, but at times he's deadly accurate. So
sure.
Barbay's already said he's going to run it more.
Oh, yeah.
If you're Tom Luginbill, what would you do walking into Will Rogers having started 30 games and knowing what you know, both the good and the bad about Will?
Well, listen, I think that when you've played a lot of football, you have to, if you're Kevin Barbay, and he's going to do this, and I've known Kevin for a while, you have to identify his strengths, identify his weaknesses, and do everything you can scheme-wise to accentuate those strengths and to mask those weaknesses. And I think part of that is to reinstitute a healthy run game. You know, if you want to see what their offense is going to be, go watch the Texas A&M App State game from last year. They flat out lined up and pushed Texas A&M around. So you're going to see a much more, and I'm not saying that they're not going to throw it. They're going to throw it. And I hate the term balance because, you know, balance is dictated by what the defense does to you.
Sure.
But I do think that you will see much more of an emphasis on things that aren't necessarily passing game oriented. You know, if you remember with Coach Leach and the true form of the air raid offense, you don't see a lot of motion and shift, and they line up and they go, right? And you may see a cross formation motion, this and that, but I think what you'll see out of Mississippi State now is more use of different personnel groupings, more shifts, more motions, a little bit more window dressing and eye candy to try and hopefully, offset the passing game. Give Will Rogers more to work with because you're going to invest more in the run game.
I want to talk to you about Justin Robinson, who transferred from Georgia, Lugs, and played at Mississippi State last year. He's 6'5", 220 pounds, and athletic, and he's got a hell of a wingspan, and they haven't had a lot of that in Starkville.
Yeah.
As much success as they've had since Dan got there, they haven't had a lot of that. You know about him from even his high school going into Georgia. He really came on, and Leach told us like midway through the season, Leach had somewhat fallen in love with him and felt like that 2023 could be a big year for him. He made an unbelievable touchdown catch against Illinois that, it wasn't a great throw by Will, but because he's 6'5",
Right.
he was able to get it, all right? And he made some other really good catches down the stretch where he was starting to figure it out. What do you see in somebody like that that's almost 6'5", 220, and really athletic, like a Justin Robinson, Mississippi State wide receiver?
They become a distinct problem in the red zone because you can line them up on the inside, you can line them up on the outside. And to your point, what you just said, he made a spectacular catch against Illinois on what was not a great throw. The throw doesn't have to be great. When you have height and length and you gained position, it's almost like playing power forward. You can just throw the ball up, and if the guy can make adjustments, if he's got body control and he's got the ability to coordinate while in the air, it's almost undefensible. I mean, you're sitting there hoping and praying they don't pick on you. But what I think the important thing is where you can line them up. You can break the huddle and you can line them up detached in the slot. You can line them up as one of the bunch receivers in a three wide receiver set. You could get into trips to the field and then put him into the boundary and see what they do defensively. Because if they leave you one-on-one, why would you not just throw it up to them, right? So I just think it gives you so many mismatch opportunities when you have that type of length and athleticism, especially in the red zone, because that's what things have kind of become now is how do we get the big, tall receiver, all right, receiver, H-back, tight end, whatever it may be, but how do we get that guy matched up against your 5'10" corner, ultimately?
And something new, well, I say new, that hasn't happened the last 3 years. They're going to Mississippi State and Barbay/Arnett, Lugs. They're going to play with a tight end.
Sure.
They
got a lot of recruiting to do.
Yeah, they landed somebody. Blake, will you look it up real quick? They landed somebody from Georgia. And do you have it?
Yeah, Rylan Good.
Okay.
He was a young tight end.
And then they feel like they've got some guys that they can move, or just athletes, Mississippi athletes that they can move there. So that'll be interesting to see Barbay and what Will can do, what Will Rogers can do with a tight end, because a lot of times instead of dumping it down to the running back, and you can walk me through this, Tom, he'll have an option to hit a tight end who may be a little bit further down the field and can do a little bit more, right?
Well, that, and it also widens your edges in the run game, right? If you don't have to account for a tight end, your box count changes on defense. But when he's in the game, and let's just say he's attached and he's got his hand on the ground, and now all of a sudden you can be an outside zone team and you've got that extra blocker up front, it changes the run game. It changes your run fit. So I just think it's something that's really, really important. The other night I had in the XFL, I had DC and Seattle, and Seattle's offensive coordinator is June Jones. That's a true run and shoot guy. But guess what? They kept a tight end on that roster. And they did it for two reasons. Number one, because they felt like they had a capable receiver who was also a really, really good blocker. And what he used to do is he used to keep an extra offensive lineman. And when things got tight, they didn't have a tight end on the roster. They brought in the extra offensive lineman. Well, that becomes fairly obvious, right? So now I think the tight end part of it just made me think of that as we were having this conversation. It just changes how people have to defend you.
Okay. I ran into a coach, a Mississippi State coach, a couple of weeks ago at a restaurant, and he was referencing workouts with with Will Rogers and so on, and he said, I'll be honest with you, Bo. We know that that Will Rogers is not super. He's not Matt Corral. Okay, that's fine.
Right.
But he said, guess what? I said, what? He said he is much more athletic than we thought, and he's actually we're going to let him run around a little bit more, within reason. Okay. Again, I'm not saying he's Jaden Daniels, right? But I just wanted to kind of give you that thought that they believe, from what I gathered, that he can pull it down, tuck it, and actually go get 5 or 6 yards if he's coached that way.
Well, not only that, but also they may also be referencing some scheme type things: naked, bootleg, moving the pocket, changing the launch point, doing stuff that would require more athleticism, as opposed to just having him be in a stationary position all the time where you constantly know where he's at.
Right. Okay. I see what you're saying. All right, man. Where are you headed off to this week?
Vegas. I got D.C. again. Sunday night, which was an unbelievable atmosphere in D.C. It was a great game. So we'll go to Vegas, D.C. and Vegas on Saturday.
When was the last time you were in Vegas?
Last spring at an Under Armour camp at Bishop Gorman High School.
Okay. Man, that place. I love it. The food's amazing. The energy. So are y'all playing in Raiders Field or whatever?
No, I wish we were. They're playing at soccer stadium, which is actually good because from a size component.
Yeah.
Like last week at DC, we play where the DC United plays. It's a 22,000 seat gorgeous stadium. It's perfect.
Gotcha.
And they got probably 17,000, 15,000 the other day. It looked full and it was loud. And it was a great time. So sometimes those venues are better for these types of things.
Who's going to be, last 1 minute, who's going to be the star quarterback in the XFL this year?
Oh, boy, that is such a good question. I think there's I don't know if there's a PJ Walker emerging yet, but again, we've only played one game.
Right. It's too early to
Jordan
ask you.
Ta'amu had some moments. Derek King had some moments.
Ooh.
AJ McCarron had a huge comeback win for St. Louis. They were down 15-3 with a minute and a half left and won 18-15.
Oh, wow. And you never know what quarterback could parlay it into a contract in the NFL, right? This kind of
you never know. That's
right.
Exactly right. Right place, right time, right opportunity.
That's right. All right. Hey, have fun in Vegas. We'll talk soon, okay?
All right, buddy. Talk to you next week.
See you, dude. Tom Luginbill, national college football analyst with ESPN. That was fun. 10 new offensive coordinators in the league, one in this state. Lane is still obviously at Ole Miss. You know what you have there. He's really, really good at what he does. Kevin Barbay, who Luginbill likes a lot, has had to grind his way up, which I think is good. And can Justin Robinson take a pretty big step in the offseason? I mean, that guy is all of 6'5" and 220 pounds and was really kind of starting to get it late in the year. You haven't had a weapon like that. I can't remember when. I mean, Derunye was big, but this is a different deal as far as Justin Robinson. And then you're going to be playing a tight end, too. So all kinds of crazy things going on in Starkville, Mississippi, and Mississippi State. Next time we'll get into Dan Enos in Arkansas, because State and Ole Miss, that's always a winnable game. And with Kendall Briles leaving Arkansas, what does Dan Enos do with KJ Jefferson? That's all KJ's ever known is Briles.